So I'm allergic to cats, and I'm much more a dog person anyway, so today we're gonna create a dog illustration in Adobe Illustrator. But I have good news. If you're a cat person, this video is actually brought to you by Creative Market, and on Creative Market you can buy and sell premium high quality design assets just like this illustration that we're gonna make. There's like over 40,000 different vector illustrations, images, and drawings of cats and dogs if you need anything like that. So hop on over to Creative Market. I'll put a link down here. You can not only get 10% off your first purchase, you can download 6 new free assets. They refresh every single week, so you can get 6 new assets every single week. Also, I'll give you guys this working file to the dog illustration that we're gonna make today. So if you wanna just skip the whole video, I need 25 new follows over there, and I'll put this link in the description as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and get this tutorial started. Here's our little dog that we're gonna be creating, and he's got about 5 different colors in him. If you want those colors, like I said before, just need 25 new follows at the link in the description on Creative Market, and I will put this up for download. So we're gonna make him, right? And I actually use the pen tool a lot more in this than I'm used to using to make the different shapes. So I'm gonna go ahead and start out with it. The pen tool shortcut is P, and we're gonna start by making the head, then we'll make the body, and we'll put them together and do the shadows. So the head's kind of a different shape. I'll go ahead and start at the very bottom, and this is like the center point. I'm holding shift so that these handles will go straight out. They're not gonna be crooked or anything. And I'm gonna point it in the direction that I want my lines to go. Same thing for everything you do with the pen tool. So we're gonna point, click and point, click and point, and just create this sort of oblong half circle, half oval shape with these 2 corners being slightly different, something like that. And then I'm gonna connect it down here. And then what I can do is with the pen tool selected, hold Option or Alt, and just bring this extra handle back, and it'll snap in to that point. And so now I have this kind of half circle shape. Now with the new properties panel, after I duplicate this by holding Option or Alt and dragging it out, I can flip it. So we can flip that along the horizontal axis really easy. If you don't have the properties panel over here to the side, you can probably go up to Object, Transform, and do Reflect to do the same thing. So I'm just gonna make sure that this kind of snaps in place like that, and then we're gonna add these 2 together by selecting them both. Shift M for the shape builder tool. It's this 2 circle right here, shape builder tool, and we could just swipe right through them to add them both together. Now I don't like the shape of this. Obviously it's too wide, so we're just gonna squish it down. We can squish it down to make the shape of our dog's head, just like that. And we need colors, so I'm going to go over here. You can just create squares with colors on your Illustrator document. I like to do that a lot, so I can just eyedropper them. And if you make them global swatches, you can change them later as needed. So this is gonna be sort of that middle brown color. We've got a lighter brown, middle, and a darker. And then we've got like a really, really dark, almost black. So this is his head. And now we're gonna create his little, I don't know, his little snout, right? And it's pretty much the same thing. I could just almost duplicate this guy, bring him down, and then make him smaller. And I'm just gonna grab the color from here. Same thing. And we want him to be a little bit more oblong, I think. Something like that. And I feel like the tops of these could be a little bit more squared off. So I'm just gonna switch over to the direct selection tool, click on the anchor point here, and I can pull this handle up a little bit. And I can do the same thing over here, just pull this handle up a little bit. Maybe even to where it intersects up top here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Make sure it intersects. All these pink lines are smart guides. You can go up to View, down to Smart Guides to turn those on. Let's create the cutout where the tongue is gonna go. So to do that, I'm actually just gonna create a rectangle. M is the shortcut key for the rectangle tool. I'm gonna switch that to pink so that we can kind of see where we want his tongue to be. And I'm gonna round these bottom 2 corners by pressing A. That's direct selection tool. By the way, the selection tool is V, the direct selection tool is A. It's these 2 arrows up here. If I click and drag to grab the bottom 2 points, I can pull in the corners. And if you don't see the corner widget, it's gonna be up in View, down to Show or Hide Corner Widget. You might be on CS6. I've got tutorials on the channel. Just search for CS6 rounding corners, And there's some different ways that you could do that. Or you could put two shapes together, like adding a circle and a rectangle. But I'm gonna assume that everyone's sort of upgraded by now. It's been out since at least 2017, so it's been a couple years, you guys. This is actually the tongue, but I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this over and create the sort of mouth opening here as well, just by bringing this up into on top of this shape, holding shift, clicking both, shift M, shape builder, and this time hold alt or option to subtract out the two pieces in the center there. So we've created this sort of opening. Now we need to finesse this a little bit, right? First, we need to get rid of a couple points here. So I'm going to switch to the pen tool with P, subtract that anchor point, and subtract that anchor point. And there's an extra one here. I don't like that either, so subtract him. So now we just have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to hold Option or Alt, click on this one, and figure out which way my handles need to go. Hold Shift, and we're just going to open that up just like that. Go back to A, which is the direct selection tool. Select both these bottom points, and I'm going to round these off a little bit, kind of like that. Don't want them to be so sharp. Okay, now we need the tongue to go right inside of here. So he needs to be on bottom of this shape. So what we can do is actually bring this guy to the front by right-clicking, Arrange, Bring to Front. So there, we got a little tongue sticking out. Now, this is probably a little too much, so we can kind of bring this up a little bit more, just like that. And I think that maybe we can bring this point down a little bit. So I'm zooming in and out with Command or Control plus and minus. I'm going to hit A for the direct selection tool and grab this anchor point. We're going to bring him down some. I don't want his mouth to be quite that open. Maybe something more like that. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to create his little nose shape there. I'm going to use the pen tool again, similar to how we did with his head. Just going to click and drag to start out this shape. And I want him to kind of come out here like that, and then come down here like this. Click and drag and just use these handles to sort of round out that nose. You can hold Option or Alt and grab this single handle, bring him back, and then we're going to finish that shape by going up there and just clicking. And then what we need to do is duplicate this guy. So we hold Option or Alt, click and drag him out, flip him again or reflect him, and we want to merge these two guys together. So we grab them, Shift M, swipe through, and we got that. Now he's obviously it's way too wide, so we just gotta click on this, and if I hold Option or Alt, I can kind of pull it in from both sides at the same time. So that's how we kind of create that nose shape. I need him to be that darker color, so we're gonna go over here to my swatches, kind of grab that darker brown. You guys can make whatever colors you want. These are just the ones that I chose. This nose is way too big. Actually, it kind of looks goofy. It sort of looks like a maybe more cartoon version of a dog. But I'm just gonna grab the corner here, hold Shift and Alt or Option, and scale his nose back a little bit. Maybe something like that. All right, let's add some little beady eyes. We can just use L, that is the ellipse tool. It's in the rectangle tool. Click and hold, go down to the ellipse tool, and just create some vertical little ovals here. And these ovals are going to be his eyes. So I need to grab that darker color again, and then just plop some eyes right here on his face. Can be anywhere, doesn't really matter. Duplicate it out by holding Shift and Alt or Option if you're on a Mac, and just bring it over here, just like that. And we can do anything with these eyes. And to center them on the head, I would Shift click both of them, and then right click, group them together. And so now that they are a group and they move together, I can actually Shift click his head as well, and then click on his head again, and go to the alignment panel. I'm aligning to a key object, which would be his head. Horizontal align center, it brings him right to the center like that. All right, now he needs some ears. So we're gonna create some up here with the pen tool again. So I got the pen tool out. I'm gonna find a spot on his head, and I actually think his head probably needs to be a little, it needs to probably be a little bit taller and a little bit more squared off. So I'm actually going to switch to the direct selection tool and find out what kind of anchor points I have to work with. First, I'm going to take this one up like that. And then second, I'm going to switch to the pen tool. Shortcut key is P, hold Option or Alt, and fix these anchor points again. I'm also holding shift, and I'm just gonna square this off a little bit more up here. It's still rounded, but it's a little bit more squared. Okay, now from here, we're gonna kind of take the pen tool. We need to deselect his head, so just click off of his head, go back to the pen tool, click somewhere around here is where we're gonna start his ears. And I'm gonna select a darker color real quick. So just eye for the eyedropper, and we're gonna select that nose color just so that we can see our shape as we're building it. I'm gonna kind of pick a spot here, click with my pen tool. I'm gonna go out here and just create his ears. So we can use the pen tool, click and drag with those handles, and just create some ears that kind of drop down here. They droop down a little bit. Maybe they come up this way. And what we could do is click and drag and sort of bend them out like that. And we can kind of mess with these handles some on this guy. So I can pull this handle out a little bit more. So he's got an ear a little bit more like that. And then we just place this on here wherever we want, essentially. The one thing you want to do is make sure this top part kind of lines up better. So what we'll do here is sort of rotate it a little bit and then kind of place it back. And then we can zoom way, way, way in and just make sure that we get that lined up just right. And if anything is not lining up for you, you can go up to the view drop down and make sure, depending on what you want, you can do snap to point, snap to pixel, snap to grid, or you can turn them all off. It's not going to snap to anything. And that's super helpful when you're trying to line something up. The other thing that's helpful is Command or Control Y will shift you to outline mode. That's also in the view drop down. Actually, I don't know where it's at. Oh, it's right here. It's a preview now. They call it preview apparently. Or it's outline and preview mode. So outline and preview mode, you can switch back and forth with Command or Control Y. And you can really, really zoom in here and see exactly where your paths are lining up. And you can kind of move that so that it lines up exactly in the right spot. And once you do that, you're pretty good to go. So he's got these little ears. And you can adjust the handles on these as much as you really want to get the type of ears you want out of your dog. So we can kind of move that around a bunch until we find something that we like pretty much. So I'm going to duplicate this ear by holding Command or Control, or I'm sorry, by holding Option or Alt and bringing it over. Also holding Shift to keep it in line. And I'm going to flip it just like we did before and then find the spot where it lines up again. Going to make sure to sort of zoom in here and we'll switch to that outline mode, Command or Control Y, and zoom way in. We see all these lines. It's kind of technical looking, but if we just click and drag that over to where they line up, that's going to be good right there. So Command or Control Y, get back out of that mode. There we go. We have the head. Now we got to do the body, and the body's pretty easy actually, a lot easier than the head. And you can move all these elements around just by clicking them, selecting the different portions. So I could select just his snout. I could group that together, Command or Control G to group things together. Now that whole piece moves around, and I can move that up. I can widen his eyes. I can do whatever I want with him. But let's make his body. So I'm going to make his body sort of separate over here. I'm gonna just eyedropper his, I guess, skin tone, if you want to call it that. And then we're gonna grab the rectangle tool and just create sort of a taller rectangle, something like this. And at the top of it, we're gonna use the direct selection tool to grab these two top points and just bring these in completely, just like that. And then I'm going to duplicate this by clicking with the selection tool, shortcut key is V, holding Option or Alt, bringing that out. And then I'm going to make it smaller first off, something like that. And I'm going to switch the color, eyedropper, just one of these darker colors. And then I'm going to center it up. So I selected both, clicked on the larger body shape, and just aligned it right to the middle. And we needed to make it skinny too. So if I click on the edge and I just hold Option or Alt, I can bring it in just like that. So now he's got a couple little legs right there. I can just scale this down if I click on the right part, using those double-ended arrows, scale it down like that. Okay, now we need to create his little feet. So we'll kind of zoom in here. And these are gonna just look like little biscuits down here, honestly. But if I start with my pen tool once again, and I'm actually gonna start up top here, just like that. I'm gonna bring it down to here and kind of just round it off, just like that. Gonna hold Option or Alt to bring this handle back. Gonna kind of go outside of his leg just a tiny bit. Something in here, just gonna click once. I'm gonna round this off right up here. So what I can do is actually redo this here. After I've closed it up, I can redo any anchor points just by holding Option or Alt, having the pin tool selected. And that's what we're gonna do on this one, because I don't like that they're unequal. So I can just grab that again and sort of make them equal. And I can actually just remove this handle as well. And so now they're totally equal on either side. And this anchor point is not in the middle. So I'm gonna scoot him over a little bit and then bring him down some, just like that. So there's his feet. That was a horrible way of making that, but that's one way of doing it. You guys can find a better way. It's kind of like a half circle, but I want it a little bit oblong. Like, I don't mind things being sort of organically not perfectly symmetrical, if that makes sense. All right, his paws are gonna be the same color as his nose, or his snout, I guess. So I'm gonna just eyedropper that. And then the other piece that I wanna do on these is use the direct selection tool and just kind of pull in these corners a little bit. I don't want them to be perfectly like squared off. I want them to be a little bit round. And then we can just duplicate this guy and bring him over here, kind of cover up where these two colors match. And there, he's got some paws down there. And then we just want like a little bit of a body sort of poking out on the left side here. So I'm gonna eyedropper this color, use that pen tool again. I'm just gonna go all the way down to the floor, kind of bend that a little bit. Get rid of this handle just by pulling it back, Option or Alt. We've done this a lot. Click over here and we just wanna click underneath, because this is gonna be underneath. So I don't mind that that's sort of pointy like that, because I'm just gonna right click that piece, arrange, and send to back. And it sent it to the back of what is actually a background color that I forgot I had, but it's behind everything now. So then I can just bring this over a little bit and I can play with these anchor points. I'm switching to the direct selection tool while it's selected, and I can kind of grab that, sort of play with these anchor points some, round this off a little bit because he's not perfectly squared like that. He's gonna be kind of rounded or have a little bit of a rounded body. Something like that if you want. We can bring this a little bit closer as well and then pull on these handles some. This is just how you sort of morph this shape, and he's got a little bit of his body poking out now. And we'll kind of finalize this once we see him up here. But he's also got a tail, and so I like to do that with the ellipse tool. Pull out the ellipse tool, shortcut key is L. Kind of just make one circle, and then I'm gonna duplicate that circle and then make this one a little bit bigger, holding shift to scale that up. I'm looking at the negative space that I'm creating here, selecting both Shift M, and I'm looking at this little piece right there. So I actually just want to hold Alt or Option to slice everything off except for that piece. Select it with the regular selection tool, shortcut key is V on that. Use the eyedropper tool, grab a paw. So we got that nice color, and then we're gonna place this in the back here and also send it to the back. Arrange, send to back, just like that. We can make this smaller, of course, holding shift and kind of scaling that down. We can rotate it however we want. You just got a little tail back there. All right, now we want to grab his body and everything. I'm going to group that all together just to make it easier. I'm going to bring it over here, and we got to send it to the back. We got to make it behind the head. So we're going to go to arrange, send to back, just like that. And then we can just move it around. And actually what we can do is we can center it on his head. So I've got the whole body group selected and his head selected. I'll click his head again, align to that key object, and press center. Now I just realized that because we have the tail, that's gonna offset it a little bit. So what you could do is sort of look and see if we can't find a better center point. We can actually center it without the tail if you wanted. I don't mind too much if this is sort of offset a little bit. It's not a big deal to me. What we're gonna do here is maybe you don't want these touching, so you want his snout to be maybe a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna grab everything up here and then shift click to not have the body selected. So I have this whole head section selected. Can right click, group that together, and then we're gonna make that just a little bit bigger, just like that. so that his snout comes a little bit closer to where these two colors touch. I kind of want them covered up some, if that makes sense. Okay, so there he is. Now, if he's too tall or not wide enough, we can grab the whole composition and just kind of scale him out a little bit or squish him down, however you want your little dog to be. I think his head is pretty wide at this point, so I would like that to be maybe pulled up just a little bit. Something like that. He kind of looks like a puppy. He's got a big head, cute little dog there. So we want to add the shadows now. Pretty easy to do that. I'm going to go ahead and group the entire dog shape together. So now this is one piece. I'm going to use my M key. That's going to create a rectangle. I'm just going to create a rectangle that hits on the center of my dog, just like that. I'm going to make this rectangle my darkest color over here. Now I'm going to select everything I have right there. Shift M for that shape builder tool, and we're just going to subtract this piece out, holding Option or Alt and clicking. Now I just have like this really dark shape on the right side of my dog, and I can turn the opacity down to something like 15%. You could do 10%, whatever you want to do here for that sort of shadow on that side of the dog. And then we can create like a little shadow on the bottom, like he's sitting on the floor, just by creating a really thin ellipse. L is the shortcut key to get that tool. We kind of place it down here. Let the center line up with the center of our shadow we just created. Send it to the back, of course, like so. So he's sitting there on that shadow. I actually wouldn't mind just offsetting it a little bit to the left since he has a tail over there. And we can create, by double clicking on this swatch, we can create a different color. I like to pick colors for shadows. I want it to be kind of matching the background, but kind of gray a little bit. So hit OK, just like that. So that is a dog in Illustrator. I kind of fumbled through that a little bit. I hope you guys were able to follow along. I know I probably didn't say all the shortcut keys and everything. I was trying to go a little bit quicker than normal, but I don't know. If you had any trouble with that, just reach out and ask me questions. Hit me up in the comments down below. Once again, this video is brought to you by Creative Market, so you can go get assets like this over there. And if I get like 25 new followers over there, you can use the link down below. I'll put this working file up for download, so you can get all the colors, you can see all the shapes, and kind of pick apart the file itself and see exactly what I did. Literally open up the file that we just made. All right, I'm Spencer from Pixel and Bracket. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I will see you next time.